and Tucker, you're included in that. We've known Butch a long time. And here's something I want you to do as you're running around town. Anytime you run into a fireman, you ask him if he's ever heard of or knows Butch Buller. Alright, I'm telling you, it's one of the most fun things to do because they'll know him, or he would have written textbooks or whatever on how to be a fireman, okay? Butch isn't going to tell you the stories of the literally thousands of people that he saved in his career. Turn around here, Butch. And this get-up that he's in right now, right, all this is because he is such a hero.
That's right.
He went into those houses back in a time when they didn't have the respiration gear that we got now. He just was in there to save those people. And so you're not going to hear a bunch of those stories today. You'll have to go get alone with him and pry it out of him because he isn't going to tell you. So he's going to tell you a few things today. And I'll tell you, he's been a hero to me as a shepherd because he's one of the best shepherds that's ever walked the face of the earth.
A large geographical part of the city, and different incidents that come up, I'd be in charge of them and decide who went where and how things were done. And I went to school at the United States Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and my instructor was a chief in the New York Fire Department that just had loads of experience. And he told me, he said, I'll come into the street in my car and I'll see fire shooting out of a building and people hanging out the windows, and I wonder what I'm going to do. He says the first thing I do is I stop and turn away from it and say, I didn't start this, you know, somebody else did. And all I got to do is put it out and kind of refocus his mind. We always need to refocus ourselves on what the task is at hand. But I did an opposite thing after hearing that, is I would go to an incident, I would stop and turn my back to the fire and pray. And at the end of some of the, I did things at this that I don't know how to do. So I can only say that it must have been the prayer that made the difference, you know? So never discount in your life the impact prayer can make on what you can do, you know? It can change things for you, and you have to be with it all the time, you know? And I was constant in that because I felt so many times that I didn't know what I should do because things just are overwhelming sometimes, and that takes the overwhelming out of it and gives you a sense of peace. And I really feel like it gave me a sense of direction in a lot of cases. The story is the crash of Continental Airlines 1713, a DC-9 aircraft, twin-engine jet aircraft, had 82 people on board. It takes off November the 15th, 1987, in a blinding snowstorm. Didn't de-ice properly. The captain and the first officer didn't have enough experience. One of them would get problems with the horizon, where I can't think of the name of the word, but if the horizon disappeared, he didn't know where he was. And so these guys get to rotation. Rotation is where the front wheel gets off the ground and starts to rise. And that's over 100 miles an hour, like 120. And they lose it. It goes left, takes the left wing off, flips upside down, slides into the snow, the ground upside down with all these people in there. Now all the baggage, all the seats, all the people, all the fuel, all the wiring, all the everything is mixed in the cabin. And I'll pass around a picture of it that you can look at, showing the back end of it, and then you'll notice on this side of it, it's smashed flat. And that's where the heroism comes in this story. When you get in there, these people are buried in there, and they had to be tunneled out. And we would find like one person upside down in a seat, dead, next to a person that was not dead, but seriously injured, and they were upside down, and there was debris everywhere, suitcases, So I sent guys in there, and they would tunnel their way in, and they couldn't figure out how to get people out. So they invented a system of laying on their backs, and we have a thing called a backboard, which we put behind your back to stabilize you in the event of an accident, so your spine doesn't. We cut those off a little bit, and then the guys would lay on their back and pass them over their head, and then somebody would load somebody on there, and then they'd pass them back down the line, like 6 or 7 people, 8 people. The further we got into that, you know how long these aircraft are. Pretty soon we had this long chain, and we had people, for instance, one guy, his arm, his head, and part of his shoulder was through a window. You know what the windows are like on that thing, you know? And to get him out of there was a chore. But the guys on the fire department are supposed to be relieved in certain intervals, which was part of my job, to make sure that they were relieved. I couldn't get them relieved. They wouldn't leave. Because they got in there and they said, "What's your name?" You know? And they started developing a rapport with the victims, and they wouldn't leave them. And so the guys that went in there, tunneled in there, stayed in there the whole time that we were there. It was a 24-hour thing. That picture there is me the next day. I'm walking by, the police photographer saw me and took my picture. But the guys wouldn't leave. They wouldn't pull out of there. And that's part of perseverance. It's heroism. It's making a connection with people where you want to do something for them. They're part of you anymore. And that's what part of being a man is saying that, well, my son had an instance the other day where his son is going to go out of town. And he told his mom, "Will you take me to the airport?" My son called him and said, "Hey, how old are you? 20? Man up. Take yourself." Well, that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
You know, we got to man up and say, we got a responsibility for ourselves, other people that we're connected to, and we got to stick with it, and stick with them, and stick with prayer, and stick with believing that in the end there's a reward for all of this.
That's right.
You know? And I think if you do that, you'll be all right.
That's right.
Now, I'm at a point where I am going downhill, and I've got to test this, you know, and eventually, you know, I won't live past this. This lung disease is going to take me. So it's really caused me to be so introspective, and so, you know, you have to look at how you live your life as well, and you need to man up. You need to man up at an early age and say, as a man, I got